Hello, everyone, and I want to welcome you to another episode of the Better the Pond Pondcast, the Flying V edition, where we talk to incredible people who are creating impact and ripples on the pond. My name is Warren Berry, and I'm your host and the founder of Instinctive Solutions, where we believe that everyone is an odd duck, but that is what makes them awesome. Today, my guest is Brent Stone. We should call this conversation the hospitality episode. Brent Stone is the restaurant manager of the Marriott Delta South Hotel in Calgary, Alberta. There have been so many experiences of hospitality that I've had at this hotel that I wanted to share the story. Brent Stone was just the person to do it. I love Brent's story. He was doing land survey work for his dad, to commerce, to flying planes, to computer work, to becoming a sommelier, working in the cannabis industry, and now a life in the hospitality industry. But Brent has taken himself wherever he went and gets to better the pond by caring for every person that he comes in contact with. Not all hospitality costs money. Thank you, Brent, for everything that you do to better the pond. Ladies and gentlemen, Brent Stone. All right, so Brent Stone, you are the restaurant manager, Delta Marriott, Calgary South.
Yes.
Of course, I had met you because of course, Mark Reum, the general manager, who I met through Tech Canada and through a course full of very successful, fateful events. You are here as a guest on the Better the Pond podcast. Brent Stone, it is fantastic to have you here.
I'm here because of this guy.
You you won you won the James Bond Award.
I did.
Yeah, so we had our meeting. We did a full day workshop with the executive team at the hotel, and we talked about all sorts of things. And yes, you were the victor of the James Pond Award, and thus a guest on the Better the Pond podcast.
Oh, perfect.
So I'm really looking forward to talking to you, Brent. We'll go through this conversation today, and I want to find out about a bit about you and what you're doing, what the hotel is. But one of the really interesting things that I've been really fascinated with is this whole piece on hospitality. So we'll see where this goes. I don't know how it's going to unfold, but I'm really, really excited to hear what you have to say today. So first of all, before we jump into about you, Brent, tell us a little bit about the hotel, about the Delta Marriott Calgary South.
Okay, so the hotel's been in operation since 1980, albeit not as a Delta. It was built as Hospitality Inns. Our
Hmm.
owner has been in the hospitality industry since 1974, I believe. His mom actually started as what they used to call chambermaids. Of course, they don't do that anymore. It's now housekeepers. Um, so he raised some capital to open this place. It started at the Tower building. We have two buildings actually. We have Tower and an atrium. I don't know if anyone really knows what an atrium is anymore because it's not the 1980s. But yeah, we've been in operation for 44 years now. It's gone through many iterations. It used to be a Best Western. Now it's a Delta. I became a Delta in 2006. Marriott obviously bought Delta in 2015. So now we're part of the Marriott family. Um, in what would be their premium tier, which is their middle tier. And yeah, we give people amazing hospitality every day.
Love it. And I have to say that I do tell a story often, is I had to speak in your hotel for a Tech Canada session. And I was walking in the Skyway, which is basically there's the part that connects to two buildings. And I ran across this guy he had a uniform on, so I knew he worked there. And it was Harvey. I'll call Harvey out. He's no longer with the company, but anyway, he just said, hey, how's it going? He's kind of just did this sort of check-in with me, and I'm like, good. And he says, so why are you here? And I said, well, I'm going to be speaking tomorrow. And he says, I'm your AV guy. What can I do to help? And he right from that moment, he just engaged me, and he's like, how can I take care of you? And well, here, let's go downstairs. And he said, let's get you hooked up, and we'll make sure that the sound is good. And away he went. And he just kind of whisked me off, and and he just took care of everything. And I'm like, who does this? Like, this
Who
would be the first.
are you?
I've
Yeah.
never experienced this before. So, we get everything set up. He says the next morning, he says, come in a little bit early. We'll do a sound check again. I'll be sure that everything is good for you. So I get down there in the morning, and we're kind of checking. He said, what can I get you? And I said, no, I'm good. And he said, no, wait, what do you need? And I said, you know what? I just love a coffee. Coffee would be great, assuming that the coffee would be in the room. It wasn't. So what he did is he went to the Jade Cafe, which is in the other building, and he left and went out and got me a coffee and came back and delivered it back to me,
Mm.
and we got things set up. And I will have to say, since that moment, I have stayed in your hotel every single time I'm in Calgary.
It's wonderful.
And the thing that I love about the story is it was one guy who was, I won't say, I don't want to be disrespectful, but say kind of low man on the totem pole. It wasn't an upper management. It wasn't management. It was the AV
But
guy,
like that.
a
Yeah,
frontline guy that
yeah.
wowed me. And I tell that story over and over. And I say, if you want to go to a hotel, and I will say it again, if you're ever in Calgary, right, go
Yeah.
to the Delta Marriott Calgary South, because just the level of, yes, we all have a bed and you have a shower. I don't think but it's the care and the hospitality that you get there that keeps drawing me back. And I
Mhm.
will actually speak out publicly is for other people to do the same.
Yeah, we create raving fans. That's what we do.
Yeah. And it apparently it works
Yeah.
because I became a raving fan and now we're having this conversation.
There you go.
Yeah. All
Awesome.
right. So awesome. Fantastic. So Mr. Brent Stone, let's take you back. So
Okay.
what got you from being a gosling? And I mean like the time that you were hatched, where you started life. I know that you were born at a very young age. So when you started life, right, to the time that you left the nest. Now leaving the nest is either you got kicked out because you were a troublemaker, or you decided to leave on your own and open up your wings and fly to where you are today. So, Brent Stone, what's your backstory?
All right. So I, like many people, had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. Um,
Where did you begin? Where did you
where,
begin life? Where were you hatched?
where was I? Where I was born in Calgary.
So you
I,
are you're a resident Calgarian.
I am a native Calgarian. I'm one of, I think it's 1 in 5. It might be lower now. It's kind of odd. Everyone moves here. No one's born here. In fact, the hospital I was born in, they blew up. So the Alberta General, which it's kind of, you listen to people from Calgary, my age or older, which that's kind of old now, talk about native Calgarians, and if they're born in Alberta General, they're kind of like, oh yeah, okay, you're a Calgarian, right?
That's a true Calgarian.
A true Calgarian, right? It's this little thing we have. But yeah, no, I was born there. I've lived in Calgary my entire life. Both my parents are actually first generation Canadians. My mom moved here from Scotland. My mom is, in fact, so old that she immigrated on a boat to Ellis Island.
Oh,
Yeah. I the last ones were in the 50s. Apparently, I didn't know it went that long. I was actually surprised when I learned that. And then she ended up growing up in Scarborough, Ontario. And then my dad's from Newfoundland, but because of Confederation 1949, all the members of his family weren't born in Canada, but he was, but they were all born in the same place. That's the joke he always likes to tell people. So they met in Toronto and they moved out here. My dad worked in an oil patch. My mom was a social worker. So yeah, I grew up in a household with them. Um, my mom's always been very outspoken. In fact, I remember I I don't know how old I was. I want to say 5 or 6. I went on strike with my mom because my mom forced me, probably because she wanted children there because it's my mom. But I thought it was neat. I went on strike with my mom because all the government employees were on strike in the 80s. So I wore a little sign. I had no idea what it said. I was probably just I was just there supporting my mom, but it was fun. Yeah, then my first job, actually, I worked for my dad. I don't know if anyone on the podcast knows much about well site exploration, but I did the mini land survey for my dad. I this thing called microfiche. So basically, it's like a negative photo of a well, like to the depth, and I'd copy and paste them together. That's all I did all day for his geologist. So that was my first job. That's a true Calgarian job, working oil patch when you're 16, part-time for your dad.
And
And then,
how did
yeah,
how did you enjoy that job? Like, I mean, it sounds pretty
it was
redundant.
boring as shit. Or I listened to my headphones, and this is back when there was no MP3s, it was just CDs. So I brought like 12 CDs and just listen and just cut and paste all day long.
Oof.
Yeah.
Now, what kind of now I wanted to, like, thinking of your age and the era,
Yeah.
what music did you listen to, Brent?
Oh, so this would have been late 90s. So it was an eclectic mix. So I would have probably a couple dance mix albums, like Much Music Dance Mix. Those are bangers. Big Shiny Tunes, Rage Against the Machine. I really like the Econoline Crush. I really like the Tea Party. Those are really good. Some Nine Inch Nails. Just,
Huh.
the most random mix you can think of. The Prodigy.
Little bit of everything, but very thematic though. If you kind of think of all those bands, right? It wasn't quite grunge, but it was, kind of playing in that sort of
Kind
space.
of like that melodic, upbeat, backbeat,
Hmm.
whatever. Well, that's kind of what I enjoy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still to this day.
Yeah, still to this day. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, I mean, any genre, as long as it's like upbeat,
Right.
and I I like the backbeat. Like the music is almost more important than the lyrics. Like the lyrics are, there's another sound that goes to the song. But as long as I like the beat, then yeah, I like it. Doesn't matter what the genre is. It could be Taylor Swift, it doesn't matter. I would like it.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so there you were working for your dad. You're listening to a little Econoline Crush. You're bored as hell, but you're making money. So you're saving. I'm assuming saving money for your first car.
Uh, yeah.
And where did you go from there? So what led you to the point where you said you didn't know what you wanted to do? So this is
Oh,
where I'm interested.
people ask me what they want to do. I had honestly no idea. I honestly no clue. So my dad has an MBA. He's like, well, why don't you try commerce? And I'm like, well, initially I wanted to take a year off to kind of figure out what I want to do, but I almost was kind of hinted that that wasn't okay. So I went into BCom, and I did 2 years of that at Mount Royal, and I discovered that I wasn't the best at commerce initially. I couldn't get over. I have a hard time with high level math, like we're talking like calculus, and
Mhm.
I just couldn't pass those courses, and I had a really hard time with it. And then I kind of dropped that, and then I was like, well, I don't know what I want to do. Maybe I'll fly planes. So, which is totally random. So, and,
Which is just like commerce.
yeah, it's exactly like commerce, exactly. Um, so I kind of like, explored that a little bit. Didn't really get into the program, and then I didn't know what to do. I was just like, nothing interests me. And then my uncle came along. He's like, well, why don't you try? You're good at computers. Why don't you try drafting? Like, oh, okay, yeah, that sounds neat. So I enrolled in SATE, and I did that for a little bit. Previous to this, I had worked at the Winter Club part time as a busboy, just to make some money.
Right.
And I eventually moved up to like a bartender in their lounge. And so I was doing that at the same time as doing this. So I went to school for a couple of years to be a draftsman.
Hmm.
And I would say partying too much. I would like some people do. And I
In
just,
the restaurant business?
yeah, weird, right? Well,
Never.
never. Who would do such a thing? So I got out of that, and I made a decision. He's like, you know what? I almost like hospitality more. Like I like the interaction with guests. I like the interaction with people. I like the pace of it. I like making people genuinely happy. I've discovered that that's what I like. Is just making people happy.
Hmm.
It could be anything. It just So I liked all these things. I'm like, you know what? Why don't I just try this? So I left school and I worked as a full-time bartender at Redwater Grill, which no longer exists.
So I have to just come back on this just a little bit, just for fun, right? So, I mean, we went from doing, helping your dad, so that's first job, right? So you did that, right? Then like go to commerce, which is, the same as oil and gas, right?
Yeah,
And then I thought, well, maybe I'll fly planes, which is the same as commerce. And then I thought, well, be a busboy and a bartender, which is just like flying planes,
yeah,
right? And then there's drafting,
yeah,
which is just like the hospitality industry. Which is in
100%.
hospitality is you can totally see how the dots totally connect along the path.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just kind of everywhere, like
I love it.
legitimately didn't know what I wanted to do.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. So now you're a bartender
Yes,
and you're slinging drinks.
I am.
Take me from that point.
Okay, so this is a couple years in. I make good money, but I feel like I need to do more than just pour wines and say hi, which I still love. I love doing that. Um, so I was like, you know what? I really enjoy wine. It's like I always wanted to be take history as a major, like a degree in history, but I
Mhm.
was talked out of it multiple times, and that's one of my biggest life regrets is not doing that. Um, but I like the history of wine, like that really kind of tied in. I'm like, that's really neat. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to be a somm. I'm going to take my sommelier course. So I did 2 years of that. So I'd work 5 days a week, and the other 2 days I'd work 6 days a week. And then my day off, I'd go to school for 8 hours. That's it, to be a somm.
Wow.
Yeah, no days off.
No days
No
off.
days off.
Sounds like the restaurant business.
Yeah, right.
So 2 years in that program?
2 years. Yeah, it was a satellite campus. It was through the International Sommelier Guild, which is on par with WSET, but WSET's more internationally recognized.
Okay.
So I mean, a lot of the Psalms in Calgary are ISG because that was the only course available. Now it's WSETs everywhere, which is great. So I mean, I almost feel like I should challenge WSET, but do I really need to? I mean, I'm already a certified sommelier, right? So
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was a lot of fun. I met a lot of people, and as you know, industry people are industry people. I met a lot of Psalms that I still talk to this day. They're all high level everywhere
Mhm.
from that course, which is great.
So how much do you get to use that in your role now, Brent?
Honestly, not a lot because it's the nature of our business is not really wine folk. It's more hospitality stay, and then we have a lot of craft beer, which I mean, it's still the same like level of talking about craft beer is like talking about wine. You just have to change the verbiage.
Right.
But every once in a while, we have a skull dinner, which well, obviously our GM is the president of Skull Canada, so we have a lot of skull dinners.
Mhm.
And then we also have Shane de Rotisseries dinner as well. So I get to pair wines for those.
Okay.
So that was super cool. I like doing that. Everyone and our chef's actually our lead, so he'll come with me. I'm like, hey, we need to pair wines for this, or what do you think about that? And then like our Christmas dinner, I got to do some cool wines. Yeah, so they kind of gave me free reign. Obviously, I'm not going to pair like Bordeaux, but or first growths, but I get to do like cool things.
Right.
So
Cool. So when you you're going to become a sommelier, so at what point along this journey did you join the Delta?
all right, so 2012, I became a somm, and then they moved me to the Redwater downtown. Um, and then when I was there, the GM of Vintage, the parent company, really liked me. So she brought me to Vintage Chop House. I ended up being their dining room manager slash somm for 2 years. And that was one of the greatest jobs only because that's when everyone in Calgary had money and
Mm.
selling.
Remember when?
It was the easiest. I couldn't believe I walked up to a table. I'm like, hey, you want a Margot? Yeah, sure. Like it wasn't even hard. So that was super. I got to move some crazy wines there. Eventually, she was promoted, so I was promoted. I became the GM there. I was the GM for 3 years, and that was during the 2015 recession. So less easy to sell wines, but still sold a few. I have some crazy stories about being invited to parties and bringing wines and selling them for the company, and just all sorts of crazy stuff. And then, I was gonna be a dad, so I was like, you know what? I don't really want to work in a bar on Friday night because that's what vintage was. I kind of want to be a dad, right? So I was like, I like wine. I was like, maybe I'll be a wine director for a wine company or something. And I ended up going on to a local company here that totally sold me a bill of goods. I wasn't the wine director. I basically ran their empty wine store because they had no capital for it. And I made the joke that it was like communist Russia. Like you'd walk in, there'd be like one wine over here, there'd be like three over there, dust on the shelves. He's like, I can't do this. And like this is it, yeah. And then I was recruited actually for Ruth's Chris, the
Hmm.
steakhouse. I'm sure a lot of people know it's international brand. Yeah, I was flown down to Florida and trained for a month in Florida. And quite honestly, the difference between the level of hospitality and their thinking there and us is night and day. Like local Calgary hospitality has nothing on the machine that is Florida.
Hmm.
Like it's completely different, right? And you think about their population's what 20 times what we have here,
Hmm.
right? So they're busy every day. I
Right.
worked there. It was someone's great idea that my expo shift was Valentine's Day at a restaurant with 800 covers. So all I did was stand against the wall and ask, "Hey, just let me know if you need me to help." Like but I can't expo this food because there's like 900 things coming at me at once.
Right.
And I had what was it, 23 marriage proposals.
Oh, wow.
23. That's crazy.
In one night.
Yeah, what 23?
Yeah, that's
Like,
crazy.
one server had six. He's like, where am I? Um, yeah, so I came back, ran the roofs in Calgary, obviously way different than Florida. And then yeah, pandemic kind of threw hospitality in the blender. I was laid off 3 times. Then I just didn't know what I was really down because I'm like, what am I gonna do? This is my skill set. Then I was looking for other jobs that would match that skill set because there was no hospitality and nobody was even calling me, which I felt really down. And then I ended up getting into cannabis because that's the same as hospitality, right?
Clearly, just like flying
Clearly,
planes
right?
and drafting.
Yeah. So I remember I walking into my mom's house. My mom's a social worker. Just remember, and tell my mom I was going to sell drugs, and that was the funniest 5 minutes of my life. So yeah,
After the look,
the look.
what
Just
happened?
imagine the look. All right. So I did that, and no, honestly, it's the same as hospitality. It's just cannabis instead of wine, right? So I
Right.
did that for 3 months. The only difference is every single person who walked through that door, it was the greatest day of their life.
Hmm.
Every single, and I blew my mind. That no one was upset. Everyone was like just thrilled they were going to be buying cannabis. Thrilled.
So it's kind of like selling the Margot, right?
Yeah,
In the times of lots of money in Calgary, right?
yeah,
Everybody's happy and they're just buying it because they can.
because they can.
Same thing.
Same thing, except it was $5 edibles instead of 1,400 on Margot,
Right.
right?
Same
So
result.
I did that for about 3 months, and then Ruth's Chris reopened again, and then I was called back. So I did that for a
Hmm.
while, and then I kind of looked at my life, and like, you know what? I love hospitality. This is great. I make tons. I make good money. I make people happy. Like people are just genuinely happy when they come. But I kind of want to change. I want something maybe closer to home, maybe a better opportunity as in the room to grow because there's no room to grow. You're the GM or you're the GM, right? um so again, I was recruited by a good friend of mine, met Mark, and Yeah, I was like, I'd love to run your restaurants for you. It's completely different than everything I've ever done in my life. I've only ever run fine dining or
Hmm.
steakhouse. I mean, steakhouses kind of skirt the edge of fine dining. I mean, like they are, but they're not.
Right. Yeah.
Um, and then I now work at a place that has, licensed gambling, and we sell happy hour beers, and I love it.
Which is just like fine dining and flying planes and commerce
And cannabis.
and cannabis. So
Mhm.
I love your story. Brilliant. So,
Right? So
so
now,
two questions for you before I move on here, Brett. This is this is amazing. I love it. And part of it as what's interesting is that I can really connect with your story because if you actually looked at my story as well, right?
yeah,
That it's you're leading me in a crooked line,
yeah,
right? And it's just this disconnect. It connects, but it disconnects, right? It's this weavy, weird way of getting to where you are. So that's why I really appreciate it and respect your story. Um, Two things. What is the number one lesson that your mother taught you?
always be on time,
Oh,
which is hilarious.
yeah. You say it. You say it. Go ahead.
Because I was definitely not on time for this.
That, which is really funny.
Yes,
Okay. What was the number one what was your number one lesson that your dad taught you?
always be yourself. People like you, decide whether or not they like you, but they can't fault you for being yourself.
Yeah, very cool. Be yourself and always be on time. Well,
Mhm.
today you're just yourself. You got 50%
That
on.
was not even close, man.
Yeah. All right. So, Brent, what's one of the greatest thing, either positive or negative, right, that's happened to you that's ruffled your feathers, and how did you respond to it?
Probably being laid off for COVID with seemingly no hope for any sort of employment. Um, it was hard, man. Like, yes, okay, I love my family, but I was just at home every day. I'd wake up, okay, I'm going to apply for jobs. Is my cover, I'd get rejection letters. I'm like, well, is my resume good? Like, is it tailored to the job? Is it me? Do they not like my skills? Should I write that I have like hospitality people are the most adaptive and quick learning people on the planet because they're forced to be? Like just interview me. Like I just wanted an interview to prove that just get in front of someone and just like I'm personable. I care. I can learn, and I try and I work really hard. It was really hard, man. And it was a good 4 months of me just being on EI, and I'm like, why am I on EI? I'm like mid 30s and I'm skilled. Why am I on EI? It was really hard for me to accept. And in the end, I know a friend pulled me out of it. She's like, you know what? I have this position, and granted, it was entry level, but I didn't care. Like I want to be youthful again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I was late at the second lockdown, which would have been December 2020. I was laid off again, and I was laid off for New Year's Eve and Valentine's Day. And I was just sitting there on Valentine's Day, and I'm like, I feel like I should be doing something way more important right now than sitting on my couch, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
So that was really hard.
So what did you learn from that, Brent? I guess that's this is a really interesting thing. I think it's a learning moment for all my audience, right? Because I
Yeah,
think especially through COVID, we all experience. I know I experienced the time of being in my bed trying to work out of my spare bedroom for 2 months, losing my mind.
yeah,
I it was a very unpleasant time for myself, and I'm sure it was for a lot of people who it's sort of there's situations out of their control that they can't manage. And it's a slippery slope, and I think you can, but it sounds
yeah.
like you can contest to that. So what did you walk away with? What did you learn from that experience, Brent?
that you you can rely on your network of people, that you have a network of people that are there for you, and when you're in the worst situation of your life, to not be afraid to reach out.
Mm.
That could be anything, like your mental health, like people are there for you that you don't even realize. That's what I learned.
Isn't that interesting? I'm glad you said that because I think for a lot of people, they're afraid to reach out, or they're afraid to be vulnerable because of the perception, right?
Yeah.
And so they hold back, and you don't reach out, and just makes the problem worse. So it's, what I'm hearing from you is, being courageous and being vulnerable and
Yes.
saying, I need help.
Yeah. Have the courage and vulnerability to ask for help, right?
Yeah.
That's what I learned, and I continue to do that to this day.
And the power of relationships,
Yes.
right? Of building those relationships, right, with people that, that they're, because I'm, in turn, right, tables at some point are probably going to flip. You'll be
Yeah, you know
you'll
what?
be there for
Someday
them, right?
someone will need me, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
I'll be there for them.
Right. Hmm.
Yeah.
That's very fascinating. I love it. All right. So, Brent, as you know, because we've worked, done some work together, the geese fly 71% more efficiently when flying in the V formation. So, what do you think the secret sauce is, or what's your secret to getting a team flying in the V formation?
Mm, okay. I would say realizing what everyone's skill set is, and putting them in their places to succeed. And then realizing maybe there's this area that maybe we don't have anyone who's good at that. And that's what you look for, right? Like instead of telling everyone to do the same thing, and yeah, we're all going to do this together. I'm like, well, maybe this person's better at than this. So honestly, skill sets, man.
So, do you think it's just skill? Do you think it's just what people know? Because we can teach people skill, right?
I guess what I mean is how they work, their life philosophy, like what kind of person they are, like what their vision is. Like obviously, say we have a goal, and me and you, we may not see eye to eye how to get there, but
Mhm.
that's still our goal, right? It's just letting people be themselves. I would maybe more so than skill set.
Okay. Kind of like your dad's lesson.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, let me ask. I've never asked this question before on the podcast. So, what is it that is something that you don't do well?
Hmm. Uh, I would say, hmm, that's a really hard question, Warren. Because I'm not going to be like, well, I do everything well. It's hard to think of something tangible that I can, rattle off in like a minute. Probably dealing with um, staff drama. What I mean by that is, I mean, every workplace has its, ins and outs, the drama, the click, whatever it is. It's just, I don't really understand why. So maybe I'm not the best person to deal with it, although I'm in charge, so I'm required to. Um, I don't get why this person would say this. It doesn't, again, because we're all different. We have different personalities. My personality doesn't understand why people would get upset over trivial things. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Would there be somebody on your team, even though you're in charge, right? Was there somebody on your team who could do it better than you?
Yep,
And would you allow them to do that?
I would in a heartbeat.
Okay. Yeah. So, it just comes to the reason I'm kind of taking that route is right that, there's things I know for myself, there's things that I suck at. Like, in fact, I dealt with it this morning. Trying to get things organized and trying to get things structured is not my wheelhouse. I flounder around. I get there, but it's a very, it's the squiggly line way of getting there, which is fine for me. But I have other people that I, my team who do it so much better than I do, and say, "Here, take it," and like, right, and they just they enjoy it, right? They enjoy the things that I suck at, and it's like, thank you so much, right? And hand it off so that let them, again, it goes back to your point, right? Just in your dad's message, right? Just be yourself, right? Just
Yeah,
you do you, you do you, right? And but because we all have the same goal in the end in mind.
yeah,
Let people be themselves to get there. So
yeah. Let people, feel like that their own free will, or not even free will, their own like who they are matters, right?
ah,
Yeah,
I'm making a note of that. Who they are matters. I love that, actually. I got an asterisk.
yeah.
Love it. All right. Um, so what are you doing right now, Brent? What are you doing to better the pond? And you can say this either from yourself as personally, or you can maybe you speak on maybe what, again, for the Delta, because you guys are really exceptional. So what are you doing right now to better the pond? What ripples are you creating out in the world?
Uh, so I use I use humor and, to a small extent, sarcasm to brighten everyone's mood. So I feel like I'm kind of the cheerleader. I just I want to have positive interactions with all my team, and I want to, maybe tell them a joke or say something funny, or just keep it really lighthearted, and kind of win through them. Right, you win through your people, and just knowing personal details about everyone in the hotel, and being able to talk about something that's not just work. Feel like you see them as, not just a colleague, but as like another human being, right? So
Mhm.
that that's really it. That's how I try to better the pond. I mean, I'm not great at creating new. This is another thing I suck at. I like creating SOPs. Like when something's already set and done, I'm like, yeah, I can implement this. But I like the creation part.
Mhm.
I'm terrible at. It's just so
There
um
it is. There's something to eat. There's something you're horrible at. Good.
just just terrible. But yeah, no, just trying to brighten everyone's day. Like it could be a simple thing. Like, hey, like some people like me say hi to them. Some people like tell me a joke. I always like to be, myself, and if that means I'm outspoken, then I guess I'm outspoken. We have a leadership meeting. The time to be outspoken is then. So that's what I do, right?
Mhm. So
So
what's really interesting about this, Brent? You are one of the first people on this podcast, and I've been running this podcast for probably 3 years now.
yeah,
You're one of the first people to ever mention something about having about being having a good sense of humor, telling a joke, or saying hi. The
yeah,
really interesting thing about what you just said, and I really want the listeners to really grasp this, a lot of people say, oh, we're sponsoring this, or we're providing money for that, or we're running this foundation, or all that, which are all wonderful things.
oh, great.
But you're one of the first people ever to better the pond by doing something for free,
There you go.
and something so simple.
Yeah,
And it really hits home to me because it's something that, that I believe in is like, say hello, give a smile, open a door, ask, how are you? I
yeah.
mean it.
It goes back to making people happy, genuinely caring, making people happy, right?
So, which goes back to the whole hospitality bit,
Yeah,
which circles back to Harvey, the AV guy, who said, "Hey, how are you?" Which made me become a full believer, right? And a consistent consumer at the Delta Calgary South,
which we thank you for.
right? But so isn't it interesting? And I'm just looping back to this, is that we talk about hospitality, And, very simple thing that was free, right, created such an impact. And it tells me then a lot about the culture, the hospitality of the Delta South. So yourself included, right? Because when you do that, other people pick up on it. That's the ripples that you create. And the
Mhm.
ripples you create, other people will mimic that because they're watching you. Don't kid yourself, right? You're in management and you're in leadership. And right. And if they do that for others, right? And you just said what's interesting about that, you never know how far those ripples are going to go out. And it didn't cost a cent.
Mhm.
The
It's
first one of the first people to actually ever say that, and the whole time I've been on this podcast.
oh, it's wonderful. Start the ripple, man.
Oh, I love it. That is so. And this is just now in my head, right? Of asking these questions, but what does hospitality mean to you, Brent?
Uh, so I've always said hospitality is how it you make me feel. Like I can have a great meal, I can have a cool experience, but how I feel, right?
Hmm.
I feel like maybe I spent $500 on the meal for some crazy reason, but I felt good about it, right? It
Hmm.
felt right. That's what hospitality is. Hospitality is here.
And so, yeah, I agree. And what I always say is that, most organizations, when I say, do you have good customer service? And everybody says, of course we do. And I say to people, well, do you have great customer service? Not everyone says that. We
Yeah.
try, right? As a lot of common is the answer. And my comment is always never give good or great customer service again. And they look at you this bewildered look. And I say, because if never give customer service, give hospitality. Because customer service drives process.
Mhm.
This is how we do it. Hospitality drives care. This is how we made you feel.
Mhm.
And there's a big difference between the two,
Yep.
right? And so when I ever go to a restaurant, yeah, I can have a great meal. I can drop $500. I can drop $200. I can drop I can drop $50, right? But how did I feel when I left? So I will say, Dan, the bartender,
Yep.
Scotland
How does
Yard.
he make you feel?
Sorry.
How does he make you feel?
Well, exactly. So here's the thing, right? He was making this smoked cherry old fashioned, right?
Mhm.
And I'm watching this. I'm like, and I was just watching him, and he just had this sort of finesse that he was. I'm like, and he got my attention. I'm like, hmm. So I'm like, so he caught my eye, or I caught his eye, and he's like, you know, on, right? And I'm
Yeah.
like, that looks awesome. But he made it and just how he did it, but then he delivered it to me and we had this conversation. I still remember the conversation, right? It
Yeah.
wasn't about the drink. The drink was sort of the conduit.
Yeah.
But how Dan made me feel welcome. He made me feel at home. He made me feel like I mattered, right? And then of course the drink was fantastic.
Right.
But it wasn't what it was about. He made me feel like I was part of something.
Yeah.
And I still remember that. I still remember it.
Well, I've even showed them, like, guys, like, just remember, everyone's watching. So don't just burn it. Burn it like you mean it, right? Make it a
Yeah.
show, right?
Right.
I used to do creme brulees tableside at Ruth's Chris for when kids requested, because just so you know, kids love fire. I turn that torch up a whole way and turn it. You can see their eyes light up, right?
Yeah.
It's a show. You're putting on a show, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what they remember, right?
So they
So
remember.
yeah, so I remember it. Like I said, it's funny you say that because when I saw Dan make the drink,
Yeah.
it wasn't just making a drink.
No, he wasn't just done, right?
Yeah,
The show.
and there was a show, and that's what caught my eye.
Yeah.
So, so that the interesting thing that how as your dad said just be yourself, and then you're saying about hospitality, you're doing that within the organization. I'm witnessing that and other people in the Delta South in different capacities.
Yeah.
I watch it all over the place. And I had one woman in the executive lounge. She's like, "Hey, I haven't seen you for a while," and I just had a T-shirt on, right? And you usually have my obnoxious shirts, right? And she's like, I met her. I met her. This was the second time I met her in the executive lounge over probably a period of 6 months.
Mhm.
She says, "What's with the shirt?" Right? And I'm like, "You remembered? Yeah, usually you wear braid shirts." I'm like, "Wow." Right?
Yeah, that
That's hospitality.
that's hospitality. You know, she remembers you, and she made you feel good.
Yeah,
She
she made me feel like
you
I
clearly have no shirts.
right. She made me
Yeah,
feel so, who they are matters, and she did that for me.
yeah.
So,
I, when I'm hiring, I'm looking for people who are not me. I look for people because I could hire 10 me's, and we'd all have the same problem, right?
mhm.
I want unique individuals who are different than me. Of
So this is going to jump into my next question. And my next question is typically, what's one lesson that you've learned along? You can answer this one, or we can alter it a little bit. But the question is, what's lesson that you've learned along your way that you would share to an entrepreneur starting a business today? So that's question number one. You can go there. Or my other question that I actually have specifically for you is like, what's one thing that you've learned along the way that you could just either share with somebody that you're hiring, or share somebody that you're caring for, or share somebody with on the hospitality route? What's the big lesson that you've learned that you would really want to be able to put out there and share with the world?
so, based on my experience, um, people will pay for what they want. What I mean by that is, instead of telling people what they want, give them what they want. So have a restaurant that, say it's a steakhouse. Be a steakhouse. Don't do to be any fancy. You don't need to be, right? They're coming here for the experience. So let give them what they want. Like don't have like unnecessary things, right? Decide what your experience is. Is that an experience you would pay money for? How would you feel about it?
Mm-hmm.
And never design a place for you to go.
Mm,
Obviously, what I mean by that is like a, a lot of places that it's kind of like I don't want to say the owner because I don't want to throw it. There's wonderful owners, but there's a lot of personal things that they like that maybe don't gel with the experience.
okay.
That right. So figure out, take your personal preferences out of it, and design an experience that people would pay money for, that you would be proud of.
If I,
That's
yeah, if I was to simplify that, I would say don't make it about you.
Don't make it about you. Don't make
Make
it
it
about you, man. Make it about the customer.
make it about them.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. And I have one more question for you, Brent, and then we'll wrap this thing up. Is if you were standing on top of a mountain and the whole world was intently listening to you, what would you say?
Order dessert.
Would you, would you care to elaborate?
Don't worry about the calories, man. Just you're already at dinner. You've already had 4,000. Just order dessert. You know you want
And where in there can we apply that to life?
it. If you see something you want, it's because you want it. So figure out if just do it.
Just do it. You're now
Just
on
do it.
a Nike slogan.
I got to move to Oregon. I'm on Nike.
All right. All right. So, Brent, I really want to thank you for your time. I know that was kind of a bit of a gong show because we started late and everything else, but we made it happen, right? I really appreciate your time. I really do appreciate and respect just that level of care and hospitality that you provide. And I'm sure, I know you do it in the restaurants and I've experienced it, but I'm sure you also do it at home, and I'm sure you do it with every relationship that you have in your life. So,
Mm.
thank you for that. And that's your way to better the pond. So, truly, truly appreciate that. If anyone wants to find you, where can they go, Brent?
Okay, so I am on obviously social media. I can share my Twitter handle. It's BrentosFS at BrentosFS. I guess it's X now. I
Yep.
was still getting used to that. I'm on social media, not social media, Instagram, but it's just pictures of my kids, which is not very interesting for anyone that's not me. Right. Yeah. I'm at the Delta. You can come say hi.
There you go.
Come smoke old fashioned, watch a show, feel good about it. You know, that's where you can find me.
And walk away a better person.
Right.
So we'll make sure that we get all your all the details and your handles and all those wonderful things in the show notes. So people want to reach out to you, you want via social media. If they want to come into the Marriott Delta Calgary South, they just ask for Brent Stone and say, "Hey, I hear you're an amazing guy. Let's have a chat."
Yeah. You know what? I'll have a conversation with anyone about anything.
All right, perfect.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right, so there you have it, folks. Great time with Brent Stone. Loved the conversation. I love the fact that you were the first person to ever actually better the pond for free. So that is the mark right there, and this is so memorable. And this is Warren Barry, and I'm flocking off to take you beyond the pond to better the pond because we're better together. Thank you so much, Brent.
Thank you, Warren. I appreciate it.